These Dudes on Games, episode number 3. All right, everybody, and welcome to another episode of These Dudes on Games, episode number 3. Recording this not too late on Wednesday, March 28th, 2012. As always, I'm your host, Lloyd Hannison, and joining me, Jeff Ward, wearing his Blue Jays gear. Look at that.
Yeah, I have to rep the Jays, and they're on. As we were talking about just at the beginning of the show here, I am just pumped by how well they're doing right now in spring training, and it's very, very good to see. Very excited for April 9th when their home opener is, and I'm a big baseball fan though, but as anyone who's listened to the shows know, because the last 2 weeks in a row I've talked about MLB The Show, and I'll talk about it again today.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's good. I usually, well, actually, not usually, but when I used to do my live shows prior to Christmas, I was wearing Jets jerseys and Jets hats and Jets. I was like really happy that the Jets were back, and I've kind of toned that down a little bit, but maybe next week I'll have to rep some of my gear.
Absolutely.
Now that we're pretty much out of playoffs, I think we're officially out of the playoffs today.
Well, as you were saying earlier, it would take one hell of a roll of the dice for them to come back into that.
Yeah, very, very lucky. All right, well, let's get into this. This is episode 3, as I said, and I just wanted to make mention of a little announcement. I'm going to turn this down a little bit more. A little announcement before we get started. I recorded a special edition of the Touch of Gaming podcast on Sunday, bright and early, like 8 in the morning. I did it with my co-host for the Touch of Gaming podcast, Jared, and he's 2 hours earlier than me, so he was up at 6 a.m. and that was to record an awesome interview with the guys over at Rodeo Games. They make an awesome game called Hunters, and Hunters 2 just hit the App Store. It's a really sweet turn-based strategy game. Awesome. Really great game and a really great interview. So I just wanted to make mention of it here in the show. So if you haven't heard it, head on over to vgpodcast.com/tog, or it's linked right off the main page, and look for Touch of Gaming Special Edition number 3. It's the one on Rodeo Games, or you can just do a search on the search bar on our page and just type in Rodeo. I don't think there's too many games that I've talked about that have rodeo in it, so you should be pretty good for that.
Let's hope so anyway.
Exactly. All right, so yeah, what do you say we get into this, Jeff?
I'm ready.
What have you been playing?
Well, if you've listened last week and the week before, I've been playing a lot. So this week rather, I toned it down quite a bit because I've been buying a lot of games. Last week I played the new Resident Evil, and it wasn't really all that good. I traded that in this week, and the week before I was on new games and stuff too. So this week I've just kind of went back to basics. I picked up on a whim. I've never been an Angry Birds fan. But a lot of good things were being said about Angry Birds Space. So I figure, 99 cents, it's really tough to beat the level of enjoyment and the amount of content that you get for 99 cents these days. And Angry Birds is up there with, you get, what is it? It's got to be around 90 some levels, and they're always expanding it. So I figure 99 cents, why the hell not? And picked that up, and holy crap, was I surprised! It is really good.
It's really good. It is a really good game. I did a review on it for one of our iOS Pulses, and I just had nothing bad to say about it. And I was totally burnt out of Angry Birds. Like, I played Angry Birds before it was big. Like, the developers Rovio were publishing through Chilingo, and they sent me a review code saying, would you please cover this in your show? We want you to talk about it. And I loved it. It had a lot of bugs, and it wasn't as good early on. Mm-hmm. And then it blew up, and I'm like, really? I played this game. It wasn't that. It was good, but it wasn't awesome. And it turns out they fixed some of the bugs, and they made the physics model a little bit better. But then I hated it. I hated all the other ones. They were too tough, and it was all about getting 3 stars, and I didn't want that. Angry Birds Space, is amazing.
It is kind of a back to basics approach, right? And the thing I struggle with Angry Birds is that it is a blatant ripoff of like Crush the Castle and a slew of other games that I can play for free in my browser in Flash. But what they do really well is although it's a ripoff, it does have this level of freshness, right? The art style is really nice. The sound, although the sound of the birds is just aggravating as all get out. But yeah, exactly. But it's not a lazy game, that there's some thought that had to go into this. There's a lot of design and a lot of very bright people that had to put this thing together. And the constant rewards you get from, every 5 or 6 levels in the beginning, they'll give you a new bird and kind of teach you how to use it. And then, you spend the rest of those 5 levels using that bird, and then they introduce a new one. And that model has always been really successful. And then, of course, the games did get very hard and more so punishing to the fact that, like, if you weren't getting 3 stars, there really wasn't a lot of enjoyment you were getting out of the game. But then
Yep.
you go back into space, and even now, it's still not an original idea. I've played games a couple of years ago on, Congregate.com that had this gravity field kind of thing to it. But for some reason, this is just a really finely tuned version of that, and I'm really impressed. The art style is still fantastic. The noise is still very annoying, but there is some thought put into it. It's kind of cute sometimes, and the snoring of the pigs is kind of funny. I usually play with the sound off just because it just aggravates me. But the physics are really, really sharp in this game. I mean, probably the sharpest they've ever been. When you shoot a bird into a gravity field and it goes around, and you'll miss your target the first time, but because it's still in this orbit thing, it'll come around and hit it on the second pass. That's really cool. And although the game does get a little bit more difficult, because at the beginning it's very easy, but as you progress it gets a little more difficult. It's not a difficult where you're mad, but it's actually kind of akin to Portal, where you'll get so frustrated, and then just as you're about to put the game down, you figure it out, and then you're like, okay, one more. And that's a really tough balance to achieve. In this game, for 99 cents, there's just no beating it on the App Store right now.
Yeah, no, I played it and loved it. I had nothing but good things to say about it in my review. The only thing that I was kind of upset about was they include a third planetoid that has 30 levels that you have to buy for another $1, where previously every game had free levels added to it, so they weren't charging you for every level pack. And this is a game that just came out, and to have other levels that are baked into it that they're charging you for, I thought was a little weird. They also changed the way that their Mighty Eagle, it's now called the Space Bird or whatever, Space Eagle.
Yeah, black hole.
Yeah. It used to be you buy an item and then you could use it to help you beat levels that you couldn't beat. Mm-hmm. Now it's like you pay money to get a certain number of charges to use it. So it seems like they're changing the model a lot, which is surprising since they've sold probably $500 million worth of Angry Birds games, merchandise, lunch pails, shirts, Halloween costumes.
I have an Angry Birds t-shirt. This is the second game that I've played of Angry Birds, and it's the first one I've bought. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they are changing their business model, which, it's tough to say that it's a bad idea, because the thing is they're going to make a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And if I was in their position, I'd be doing the exact same thing, to be perfectly honest. I mean, the business is to make money, and for a 99-cent game, you kind of have to squeeze as much as you can out of it.
I totally get that. My only issue is the fact that all the other games, they were supported by all these like millions of players, and it's like, we'll buy your game, we'll pay a second time to get it on the iPad and the iPhone, even though most developers now are starting to do universal apps. And then they come out with this game with a bunch of DLC. It's 99 cents on the iPhone, $3 on the iPad, so it's not universal, and they have all this DLC built in. So I'm hoping that they go back to form and they start releasing a bunch of free stuff. Not that I'm being greedy, but I'd hate to see them kind of sour in the eyes of all their fans, because I really liked Space. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a ton of fun. I haven't even beaten it yet, but I mean, it gets more fun as you progress. I think that the next logical step, and I hope they take it somewhere here, is that for Angry Birds to kind of progress into the, let's say the next Angry Birds, if it's Space or Space 2 or whatever it is, give me the game for 99 cents. And then for another 99 cents, give me a separate app where I can build my own levels, and then upload them to a server where people can download them for free. Mm-hmm. So you pay for the builder, and people can upload levels for free, and essentially you're in this constant you've got this constant slew of free levels that are keep popping up onto your device. That would be really cool. I think that's a really good way to take it. However, they might shoot themselves in the foot if nobody goes and buys the next one because people are still
Exactly.
making levels for the Space 2 or whatever it's going to be.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. So yeah, I really dug the game. I'm glad you checked it out.
Yeah.
It definitely was a lot of fun. So
Yeah,
what else you been doing?
The only other thing that I'm really playing, I mean, other than the stalwarts Call of Duty and just kind of going into Skyrim a little bit, the thing I've been really dumping a lot of time into, again, is MLB The Show on the Vita, and I'm just so into this game right now. And the more I play, the more I find these new nuances that I like. And if you're not a big baseball fan, this might fall on deaf ears, but if you really like a sports simulator that does your game right, and if you're a baseball fan, you really can't beat this. If it's on the console or on the Vita, this game is just fantastic. You'll see batters go in through a hot streak or a cold streak, and then you'll also see them fatigue over time, and you'll have to kind of pull them out of the rotation, sit them down on the bench, get them back up to snuff, and then or train them more during off time with games. There's a ton of nuance here that I'm just starting to learn as I'm about 20 games into the regular season here with the Jays, and it's so deep, and I can't believe how deep it is for a handheld game.
Right.
It's easily the best handheld sports game I've ever played in my entire life.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't say that lightly because I know that there's a ton of them out there, but this is a franchise that is fantastic, and they do a really good job of sports simulation nowadays. Even on the easier difficulties, is still pretty tough. Using the analog stick to bat or to swing or to shoot the puck or whatever can get very tough. And they do a really good job of kind of being able to customize each individual setting. So if I like to throw pitches with the analog stick, but I like to bat by just using, the button presses, I can totally do that. I can totally make it so that, my fielding is almost entirely done by the computer, or I can have complete control. So they make it really easy for players to jump in who have no baseball experience and still have a really fun time.
Right.
And then those people who are just diehards like me who want control, 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 and every mistake I make is my own and not the computer's fault, they still make it able to do that as well too. So I'm having a blast. This is a game that I will not put down, and I certainly won't trade in until MLB Show 13 comes out.
Right. Awesome. Well, it's good to hear that you're enjoying it. You definitely got your money worth on that one.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, let's get into a little bit about what I'm playing. I'm going to start first with a new iOS title that I just picked up today. So this is a review. This is me talking about a game that I haven't really had a chance to fully go through. But this is a game that was released first in Canada on the iOS store, and I believe it's coming tonight to the rest of the world. And it's a Skylanders game. It's called Skylanders Cloud Control, and it's $1 on the App Store, and it's a universal app, so it runs on your iPhone and your iPad. And the reason why I like this one is because I'm a bit of a Skylanders freak. I have kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, and we have more than half of the characters. We have 3 of the 4 play sets. You can see like all these are all my cards from buying the things for my kids. I originally started buying them just because my kids wanted them, and I thought this would be a great game for them to play because there's multiplayer, there's single player, and I actually found myself enjoying the game myself. So I played through most of the levels and beat most of the hard parts. So I kind of dig Skylanders. I like having a little figurine that does more than just sit there and you put on a shelf. Like if I had this when I was a kid, I would have just my brain would have exploded. It would have been just so unbelievable that you have an action figure that levels up with you as you're playing. But anyway,
it's a cool concept and something that I think a lot of different companies have tried quite a few times.
Yeah.
I know that there was a couple of internet games before this one that you went out to the store and you bought some kind of plush or some sort of action figure that
Neopets and Club Penguin and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that stuff's really cool, but I think in Skylanders it's really been honed, quite like Angry Birds Space has been, just to a very perfect T, right? Where you're getting this physical item that you can hold in real life and then pop into the game and you're leveling it up and then the information is shared. Like that's really, really cool and tough to do as well too.
And the best part is if you level up in the game, it writes that information back to the figure. So you take that character over to your friend's house and you're playing with a level 10 Spyro and they have a level 3 Spyro and your figure is better than theirs because you spent time with it, which is pretty cool.
That's cool.
But anyway, this is an iOS game, so it doesn't use the figures at all. What it does is it uses what what are called web codes. So when you buy a figure, you get the figure, you get a sticker, you get a card, and you get this little web code so you can go online and play the game. So when you want to unlock like Slam Bam or Spyro or Zap in this game, in the iOS game, you just have to punch in that code. And if you don't have that code, you can actually use in-game currency to buy it in. There's like gems, which is kind of the premium currency. You can buy it or you can win it through leveling up. And then there's coins that you get by beating the levels. So anyway, all of the figures that I already own, I can now use in this game, which is kind of cool. The game is set up similar to Jetpack Joyride, where there's a set of missions that kind of govern your play through the game. And it's a high score game. So
Love that game, by the way. Jetpack Joyride's amazing.
And this reminds me very much of it, except it's not you're running left to right trying not to die. It's more of a shooting gallery. So it has the mission system from Jetpack Joyride, like shoot 10 ogres, collect 500 coins, and make it to round 20 might be your missions. And then if you beat the game or beat that level or do whatever the missions say, you get stars, which then level up your character. When you level up, you get 5 of the gems, which you can use to unlock either special items or more characters. And you also get gold by playing the levels. They're simple, kind of like shooting gallery type things where enemies appear and you have to touch them. You can also drag from one enemy to another to do a chain attack. And there's these like floating bombs. And if you touch the bomb, the level's over. So it's pretty simple, but it's actually kind of deep with all the different power-ups, because if you know about Skylanders, they had like the figures, and then they had these play sets which come with like a little thing. So you'd have like the pirate play set, which is a pirate ship, a treasure chest, a set of ghost swords, and a figurine. All those figures can then be used in the game. So the treasure chest and the ghost swords, if you unlock them in the game, they give you power-ups. Like the swords will allow you to do special attacks. There's a hourglass that allows you to slow down time. So those randomly appear on the screen, and they can affect the outcome of the game as well. So really, really hit me, kind of blindsided me, because I didn't even know this was coming out. One of my buddies said, "Hey, did you pick up that new Skylanders game?" And I'm like, "Oh no, Skylanders Giants, it's not out till fall." And they're like, "No, the iOS one." And I'm like, there's no iOS one. I just searched like 2 days ago because I was looking for something. And he's like, no, it hit today for Canada, and it's coming to everywhere else for tomorrow. So downloaded it and instantly really, really enjoyed it. I love the whole like iterating on the same game, leveling up your character, getting better, and then unlocking achievements and getting the high score on the leaderboards. And that's all baked into this one. So
yeah. Is there any reason why it came out in Canada first?
A lot of developers do that when they have a server component to their game, because Canada is 10% as big as the US, so they can basically look at 10% of the load on their servers and see kind of where they're at. So a lot of online games did that, like Order and Chaos, which is an MMO on from Gameloft, launched in Canada for about a month almost. It was probably about 3 weeks, just to kind of figure out server load, and then they launched to the rest of the world. So.
And I guess The Simpsons Tapped Out or whatever did the same thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
it's a smart thing to do, actually, because
it gives you a captive audience that isn't going to blow your servers out of the water.
Because as soon as EA opened up the doors for the American market, the whole thing just shut right down.
And I don't think it's back on the App Store. Actually, I don't think you can download it unless you already own it.
I think they flashed the. Getting a little off topic, but I think they flashed it too, because now my Origin account, when I log in, I have to start the game all over again, and I was far enough in that I don't want to do that, so it's just sitting there, and I'm like, I really wish I wanted to play this game, but I'm too lazy to go back and start from the beginning.
That's funny. No, I've just placed Moe's Tavern in my copy. I keep playing it. I want to unlock all of Springfield, so I lucked out, I guess. They didn't erase mine. So anyway, that's Skylanders Cloud Control. It's $1. If you're in the US, it should be out by the time you hear the show. And if you're at all into Skylanders, your kids are or whatever, this is a really fun tie-in to the universe. I was kind of wondering when the Skylanders app would hit iOS, because there's a 3DS version, and then there's the console versions. And it's kind of cool that it still uses the figures in some way, even though there isn't a portal that will link up with your iPad. All right. Next up, I played a little PS3 game called Journey, and that's by the company, the game company called That Game Company, so easy to remember. And they're the developers that brought out the game called Flow. which was
Yeah.
you kind of moving with the axis control in your PS3 controller, moving this little single cell organism, eating smaller things, growing bigger. It was kind of cool. Came out right around when the PS3 launched, and then they more recently came out with a game called Flower, where you basically play.
Love that game.
You play a gust of wind and going through and activating seeds and pollinating plants, and it was a lot of fun. So I knew Journey would be awesome, but I just didn't know how awesome it would be. I bought it; it's $15, and a playthrough of the game took me about an hour and a half. So it's not the most long game ever.
That's a movie ticket though.
Totally, and I'm not complaining about that at all. Like it's I was kind of happy that it only took me that long because it allows me to go back and play through it a couple times, and basically without spoiling anything, because it's a game that you have to experience. And if you have a PS3, you go get it. It's a game that you need to you need to get. But basically. You start at the start of the game. You start it. It has some credits or whatever, and then it shows this desert scene with this setting sun, and you see this mountain with a couple things with fabric kind of blowing on them, and then it just has in the bottom left hand corner it says press start to start the game, or press start to start a journey. And then that's exactly what you do. You hit start and you're thrown into the game. You don't know anything about the world. You don't know anything about you. You're this little dude. I think you're a dude. I don't know. You could be a girl. Who knows? You have a black face because your face is kind of recessed into this hoodie that you're wearing. You have glowing eyes and you have this red robe, which is kind of a cloak. You don't have arms. You just have these really pointy legs. And you're in the desert. You're in the sand, and you basically stand up and you don't know what to do. And then on the screen it flashes, rotate your 6-axis. And when you do that, you basically turn the camera and look around. And then it says, it highlights another part of the 6-axis, the left thumb. And when you move it, obviously that's the standard move your character thing. So it's basically a game that anybody can get into because it kind of trains you right off the bat. But it doesn't give you anything about the story. All you know is that the camera's pointed at this little hill with the stuff on top of it. So you make your way to there, and then a cinematic plays that shows you some of the rest of the world. And I'm not going to spoil anything else. All that I can say is that this game can touch people on an emotional level. It's something that you experience with other people, because randomly as you're playing, other people will join your game, but you can't.
Yeah, real people, by the way. Yeah,
they're the real people. You can't communicate with them at all in voice or text. The only thing you can do is hit one of your buttons on your controller, which sends out like a ping, and people, like I've played online a few times, and people will do it in different things, like they'll tap it 5 times when they want me to come there, and you kind of just figure out what they're trying to tell you. And then there'll be parts of the game when no one's around, because no one else that's playing the game is in that same area that you're in as you make your way through, I think, the 6 stages towards the end of the game. So the game basically evolves or revolves around you getting to a certain part of the level, which then unlocks the next level. As you do it, you're finding things that give you more jump ability. That's essentially the only power that you get in the game, is the ability to jump and float. And you basically meet some things along the way that like when I first saw certain things in this game, I just like had an ear to ear smile. It is an amazing thing. I played it with my kids, actually. They were watching on the couch, and they fell in love with a certain couple things in the game, and they're really sad at certain parts, and they're really happy at other parts.
So they're watching it like a movie then.
They're watching it exactly like a movie, and
That's cool.
And even though these objects don't talk, they have personality. It's like watching Wall-E, where Wall-E doesn't really say any words at the start. He's just making sounds and things.
Good example.
And you fall in love with that character. The same thing happens in Journey. Really cool. And just to kind of see how my thoughts that anybody could pick this up and enjoy it are. My wife doesn't really play games anymore. She used to be a big, like, we used to play Super Nintendo, we used to play N64, we used to play GameCube. Like, we've played a lot of games together. I just rattled off a whole bunch of Nintendo consoles. We have played other stuff but Nintendo. But she hasn't really played games since like the original Xbox and Xbox 360. She really hasn't gotten to any of the newer games because she had kids, and now she plays games on her computer or on her iOS devices. So I said, Carrie, you gotta play this. And she's like, well, what is it? And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to tell you. She's like, well, then I'm not going to play it. I'm like, no, you have to play it. This game is going to be awesome, but I'm not going to tell you what it's about, because that's the part about it. That's the whole thing about it. is that you don't know, but you learn and you experience it. And she's like, okay, whatever. So I sat her down last night when she got home, and she started playing, and it took her about an hour and a half. And I'm watching her as she's playing, and there's certain parts where I was like really kind of smiling when I played through it. She had these grins and sparkles in her eyes as she's playing it, and she had a lot of questions, but I refused to answer any of the questions. I just wanted her to experience it as I did when I first played it. And then as she got towards certain other times when the story kind of takes a turn and whatever, you could see kind of the look of like not anxiety, but kind of on her face, and kind of fear. And it's like, wow, this, very cool. It affected me that way, and it's affecting other people that way. And it was just a really, really cool experience. So
tall order for a game. I also like the fact that when you said that one of the reasons she stopped playing video games is because she had kids. Like, you weren't a part of it at all.
Well, I was, but I didn't have to push anything out and nurture it with parts.
She's there just screaming in excruciating pain, and you're sitting there playing your DS.
No, I would have died if that would have happened. She would have ripped out my throat. But yes, ever since she had kids, she's had no time. She's found other things to do, we'll say.
It's cool that there are these little bite-sized games that don't take a big commitment. You know, like Skyrim is a game that I think everybody who calls himself a gamer should experience. Mm-hmm. But it's such a tall order that it's hard for me to, like, I realize that you only play games 3 hours a week. Go play Skyrim, like that. Yeah. You can't just do that. So this is a game that, like you said, really anyone can kind of pick it up and play it and get, a very satisfying level of enjoyment. I haven't played it yet, but you know what? I think I'm going to buy it tonight and I'll play it. And the next show, I'll give my impressions, because I'm a big fan of games like this. Like I said, I love Flower. I played Flow, but I never bought it. I thought it was a really good game. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big fan of these really subversive kind of non-game games.
Yep.
And another one that is a game, but it's kind of in the same vein as Limbo that came out on the Xbox Live Arcade a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. Holy crap, that was an experience that I still haven't forgotten. I mean, the last frame alone of that game is one of the most haunting kind of visuals I've ever experienced, and it was, $15. I can't even believe it.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing what is hitting for downloadable now. I guess the cost of entry is a lot lower, and because you would never get something like this done on any console. No one's going to spend $200 million to make this game, because it doesn't need that kind of budget. But yeah, if you have a PlayStation 3, because it's PlayStation 3 only, definitely go pick it up. I can't say anything bad about this game. It is quite the experience from start to finish. It's like a good book or a good movie. It takes you on a journey, which makes sense as why it's called Journey, from start to finish of the game. And it's a game that you'll want to replay just to experience a couple times. It's awesome. Definitely a lot of fun. And the other game that I picked up is a little 3DS game called Kid Icarus Uprising. Sold a whole pile of these this past weekend, and it's actually really good. I gave more of my thoughts on it on the last Nintendo Pulse, so if you're interested in like a 15-minute babble from me, you might want to go listen to that one.
Yeah, I listened to it. It's actually a really well put together little review, because it's kind of a tough game to review in a sense that it's been you've anticipated it for so long, and it comes out and you're like, holy crap, like, it's finally here. You don't want to be too overzealous, but you also want to give it a fair chance.
And the thing about the game that's that I didn't expect, even though I heard it talked about a lot, but I didn't really expect it, was the fact that it's made by the Smash Brothers guys. So Super Smash Brothers Melee or Brawl, on the GameCube, or on the Wii, was a huge game. There was huge number of arenas, a huge number of characters, a huge number of unlockables and items and trophies and things. And this game is exactly the same. There's 25 levels, which is huge enough. Each level is divided into two parts. There's an in the air on rail shooter, and then there's an on the ground kind of third person action game. There's 100 different weapons in the game that you can unlock, you can create, you can find, you can trade for. Each level that you play, you get hearts. You then use those hearts to bet for the next time that you play. So you can increase the intensity meter on each level from 1 to 9. 1 is you're basically impervious to all damage. 9 is there's 100 things on the screen at once shooting at you, and it's really hard to complete. So even just the single player game is crazy. There's a full online multiplayer game as well, and a local multiplayer game. The online multiplayer is team deathmatch and just normal deathmatch, so that's built into it as well. Again, you can get weapons, you can trade weapons, you get hearts, you get all these things. They built in an AR card game, so you get AR cards with this. So you line them up, you point your 3DS at it, and it will basically do different things. So there's like 400 AR cards that you can find by going to events, buying magazines, getting them from Nintendo.
400, holy crap.
There's a way to get idols in the game, which are kind of like the trophies that you had in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, where every time you unlock an AR card, you get that item as an idol, and then you can use it to get more hearts. They unlock different things. You learn about it. The game is huge. Like,
yeah, it sounds huge. That sounds like a console game.
It has I guess achievements. I guess they're not called achievements, but there's achievements in here. You do certain things and they unlock tiles on a picture, and then the tiles that are around it, you can kind of see what you have to do to unlock those ones. There's 360 of those, so even if you just want to be an achievement whore and unlock all the achievements, it's going to be 360 achievements that you're going to have to go through. Like, the game itself is huge. The only downfall to this game is the controls. Basically, you're using the circle pad with your left hand to move pit on the screen. You use your stylus on the screen to aim your shots. You shoot with the L button, and then when you're on foot, you use the circle pad to move, and you move the camera and aim by basically touching the touchpad with your stylus. It doesn't support the Circle Pad Pro, which is really kind of stupid.
That's unfortunate.
Sorry, it does support the Circle Pad Pro, but only if you're a left-hander, because it only gives you a circle pad on the other side for movement.
Yes,
and
I was going to ask you.
And you're still using a stylus. Like, so there's some things that are kind of weird with it. It comes with a stand because they figured that it's going to be the 3DS is too heavy for a lot of people, so you're going to need to put it down to play this game, which is like, okay, well, didn't you think that maybe releasing a game that you need to include some hardware? Like, what's next? You're going to have this like bungee cord system hooked up to your hat so you can hold it in front of you. Like,
well, the thing about a stand is that, it on paper, it takes the strain off my wrists. Of course, I'm going to put it on a stand.
Yeah.
Then you got to sit at a table, and you got to make sure that table is as high as you need it to be, and that your chair isn't too low. You can't just sit on the couch and play it. It's like you've got to set up a station for you to play your handheld.
Yeah. And last time I checked, this is a portable game system, not a console. So you shouldn't be you shouldn't be locked to a specific location. So anyway, the controls, I'm used to them now. Although if I play for like an hour at a time, I get like this like claw thing, like a T-Rex claw. I have this like T-Rex arm, but that goes away after a while, and then I can get back into it. And I don't have like huge meat hooks either, so I can't imagine like people that are like 7 feet tall and they have like hands as big as my head, how they're going to actually play this. But they're probably not playing portable games anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you said that, because with the Vita, the thumbsticks. It's cool that we finally have dual thumbsticks on a friggin' device that's like, at launch stock. It's not an add-on. But my hands cramp up a lot when I'm playing, an entire baseball game. Although I found if I just turned the thing upside down and the thumbsticks were at the top, my hands are so relaxed. It's the position that they're on the bottom of the device. It makes my thumb have to kind of curl in.
Yeah.
And I find that, although the circle pad is a little bit more centered, it's still, because it's recessed into the device, it's still, you kind of have to crane your thumb around.
Yeah.
It's an arthritis machine, that's for sure.
Totally. And that's my only complaint really with Kid Icarus. I'm a little bit more than halfway through the game, enjoying it, taking the stages slowly, playing some multiplayer, unlocking some idols, doing like all the stuff that's in the game. There's a street pass mode, so when you pass by people that have played the game, you trade weapons with them. Like, you have these weapon gems, so you can unlock other weapons just by walking around and passing other people that have played it. So there's so much to do, that the controls being so bad don't really rank up there for me. They don't detract from this game at all. So I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it. I'm gonna beat it before the next Nintendo Pulse, so I can give my full review on the next episode.
Oh, wow.
I love the game, and it's on sale for $30 in a lot of places right now. Best Buy in the States, Amazon in the States was selling it for $30. There's still some places all over the world that are putting it out at a discount, and it's definitely worth the pickup. And I tell people it's a 3DS stand with a free game thrown in, because a lot of people are like, oh my god, it comes with a stand, that's pretty cool. It's like, yeah, it's a stand that comes with a game that is really good and you should play it. So anyway,
it's been getting really good reviews, so I'm not surprised that you like it as much as you do.
Yeah, I read a couple early reviews. There was one up gave it a 5 out of 10 early on, and I'm like, oh, 5 out of 10, that's kind of scary, but it's kind of gone up a little bit, so it's not so bad. So anyway, that's enough of Kid Icarus Uprising. Maybe I'll talk about it again next week, but it's definitely worth a pickup. All the games that I talked about today are worth a pickup. There's so many good games coming out, and I just wish I had more time in the day to play them all.
It's tough to stay on top of them.
Totally. Well, there's so many games. Let's get into the news and talk about so many new consoles coming out. We kind of went over that the last couple episodes, saying, well, there's no 360, there's no new 360, there's no new 360, and this one kind of snuck out and came out today. There's some rumors coming out by sources that the next PlayStation is going to be coming out this year, holiday 2013. So So it's 2012. So next holiday.
Yeah, next year.
Oh, so it's next year. I totally misread this article when I first read it. I'm like, what? That's insane.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
so
super quick, but still, a year away isn't that long away.
So I'm not as amazed as I once was, but I'm still kind of amazed. So this is the next PlayStation. They say it's called Orbis, which apparently is something that in Latin, orbis vitae, so it has the vita, it has orbis in it. It's basically the circle of life. So they're basically saying that both of these things used together, it's the circle of life of gameplay, both on the PlayStation and on the Vita. So this is going to be the PlayStation 3 successor, and this isn't such a big story now that I've actually understood that 2013 is different than 2012.
It's actually still a pretty big story, because I still feel like it's too early.
Yeah.
And we're still only, although I guess it is kind of around the time when Sony is going to announce their new hardware, they are a big proponent of the 10-year console life cycle. So I still think it's early, but I also, I'm not going to agree with Kotaku on this one here, because I feel like everything is way off base here. There's a lot of stuff that is, it's revolutionary in the sense that it's just so against the grain of what gaming is about.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, go ahead.
The only thing that I thought this is all crap, essentially, when I first read it. And then I saw there's a screenshot where if you go to orbis.scedev.net, you actually are taken to SCE DevNet, which is the developer site when you have development kits and stuff from Sony. So Orbis is an actual name of something. Whatever it is, I'm not sure. So once I read that, I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe this actually exists. They're saying currently that the specs are an x64 AMD CPU and a Southern Islands GPU, which isn't too surprising. I mean, that's a pretty high-end GPU. Some of the cards that are going to be coming out are going to be having similar GPUs to this. They're saying that the system is actually going to do Real HD or whatever they're calling, which is basically double HD. So it's 4096 by 2160. So
it's what the film industry is calling 4K now.
Yeah, so it supports 4K right out of the box, which is kind of crazy.
It's insane, but I don't see TVs being readily available that are 4K resolutions by then.
The problem is bandwidth. Like it's hard to get enough bandwidth, even for like an HDMI cable, to properly push that much data to your television. So that's why when you get a 4K reference set when you're working on like a film and you're shooting like high end with like a red camera, you have to use like special cables, and a lot of it is like over like optical, or sorry, over the fiber right now, because that's the only way that they can push that amount of data reliably. So yeah, things have a long way to go before 4K is going to be in your sets. I mean, people aren't even buying 3D TV sets. So
no, and I hope that they kind of fall off too. But like you said, the cables alone, those are expensive cables. I mean, if you have the money to buy a Red camera, you have the money to buy cables, because you need, first of all, that kind of footage, and this goes with gaming as well too, because if we're going to be putting out resolution that's 4K, the amount of processing power inside the unit is going to have to be huge, which is why you're seeing the specs as high as they are. Because this is, I mean, Sony's no slouch in hardware, but this is far and above what the PS3 ever was. We're looking at nearly double, if Sony isn't going to reduce the power of the cores like they do with the PS3. I believe there's actually one core of the quad in the PS3 that is locked away from Sony just to conserve power. But you're looking at a box that's going to be super hot. It's going to suck so much power from your outlet, and your entire room is just going to just be this this huge just hot box because of how much energy everything is going to use, with your TV that's going to produce 4K, your cables that are going to be running super hot with all this information going through, and then this gaming console that's just going to be cooking overdrive. It just seems way too far in advance.
Well, I think by the time 2013 hits, a lot of this stuff is going to be minied down. So they're going to have better fab, like I guess, ways to fabricate it, better equipment, better hardware, cheaper components. So things are going to be a little bit smaller. It's not going to be like the $500 top of the line video card that you buy now that needs liquid cooling and 6 case fans. I mean, it's going to be a little bit smaller, but yeah, it's still going to suck a lot of power, and it's going to put out a lot of heat. Some other things that they're saying is no backwards compatibility are talked about with this at all. Since it's not using the same processor, it would be impossible to make a virtual cell processor to run games, since it's basically just using a normal AMD that you'd stick inside your PC. That's not going to work. So Sony's not even talking about backwards compatibility, which isn't surprising. I mean, they killed the PlayStation 2 backwards compatibility pretty quick in the PlayStation 3's lifestyle. And they're also saying that there is going to be no used games. So you can either buy games online from PSN, or you'll be able to buy a Blu-ray, which will have a code to lock that specific disc to your console.
Yeah, so it's no even I can't even borrow my friend's games. I got to pay for it all by myself.
Yeah, I hate that. There's another story coming up later in the show, which we can get into whether we agree or not on that whole thing. Spoilers, I hate it. But anyway... I don't know. I hope that isn't what's going to happen. I mean, there's no rental places anymore in the world, pretty much. Every place that rents physical media is shutting down. I mean, there's still GameFly, I guess, in the States. We don't get that up here in Canada.
Yeah. The only place we can rent games here is... does Microplay rent games in the city?
I think they do.
But
the Microplay I used to go to shut down, so I don't even know if there's a Microplay that I can even go to anymore.
The only one I know of is at St. Vital there.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's what people are saying. Orbis, they're saying that there might be some burbles coming out at E3 maybe, that Sony is going to say that they're working on something. Apparently, developers have had dev kits since early this year, so I don't even think they'd be showing anything off other than this is the next thing that we're going to be launching. Kind of like when they did the Vita, when they called it the NGP, the next generation portable. They kind of showed it off a little bit. This is what we're kind of aiming for, but this isn't the final thing. Maybe they might do that at E3, but I think that'll be something probably later in the year, if not early next year. But yeah, so PlayStation 3 is actually apparently being worked on, especially since you can go to the development website and actually get a placeholder page for that console. So
yeah, I'm still not 100% sure if I buy any of it. Even the website, and because I went and looked at it too, because you put the article up and I was checking it out, and I'm just trying to do as much quote unquote research. I'm doing air quotes here because it's really tough to get any deeper than just the article. But I could explain away the website by just saying that maybe Sony is just talking about their console and handheld life cycle as this Orbis thing, and it's not actually the clue into the next console. I just feel like everything that this source says in the article it just seems so radical, even by Sony's and their entire console lifespan has been pretty radical, pushing the limit. But this just seems way too far, and I can't buy it just yet.
I don't know, like when you had crazy Ken Kutaragi saying the PlayStation 3 is going to be crazy powerful and you're going to work two jobs to pay for it because that's just what you'll do, and
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
you'll be able to link multiple consoles together and multiple TVs together. You could have 8 televisions powered off of 4 PlayStation 3s, all displaying the same game. Like they shot really high, and reality was they couldn't produce even half of what they wanted to do, just because people weren't going to spend $7,000 on a console. This doesn't surprise me. You have a developer that's leaking the name Orbis. People do some research and see that Orbis exists on stdev.net. If you type in anything else as a subdomain, it comes to like a 404 can't be found thing. So it actually exists. So it's like when Wii U was first being rumored, there was I can't remember what it was called, but there was if you went to Nintendo's developer portal, you typed in a Nintendo Cafe, which was kind of like the code word for the Wii U,
Yeah, for that one,
and it brought you there. And then next thing you know, like the graphic of a cup of coffee with something with like a Mario M on it disappeared because people are like, Nintendo's like, oh crap, people found this out, so they took it down, and that turned out to like the smoke led to the fire, which was the fact that Wii U is right. So I they're obviously working on something, whether it's going to be called the Orbis or not, or if that's just the crazy code name, whether it's even going to be coming out next year, who knows? But
Yeah, you're definitely right in the fact that they are working on something, because if we're this late into this console life cycle and they haven't started yet,
yeah,
wow, are they behind? So you're absolutely right in that. I'm not sure if this is it yet, but only time will tell. You're starting to win me over. That's for sure.
so cool. So hopefully we might hear some more burbles around E3, but if not, definitely later in the year or next year they're going to be talking about the Orbis or whatever the heck, or maybe it's the Roy Orbison. Is what the code word for it is. So they're just calling it the Orbis for love. Who knows?
It's the new special branded PS4.
Exactly. All right. So moving on.
Yeah, so this week, and this is if you're a Call of Duty fan, then you probably are already aware. But Robert Bowling, 402 on Twitter, has officially resigned as creative strategist from Infinity Ward Activision as the Call of Duty community manager, which is, it's pretty big news. This guy was in it from the beginning. He was at the start of Infinity Ward, at the start of Call of Duty with Vince Zampella and Jason West. He was there in the beginning, and he has written out a lot of stuff up to this point. And his job, essentially, if I can break it down really quickly, is to take crap from us. That's what he does.
Where do I sign up for that job?
Yes, and it's probably not a very well-paying job for the amount of crap you take, but he's on Twitter. He is the essentially the messenger between the fans of the game and the developers of the game. So if you have a problem, at 402 on Twitter, tell him what it is, and hope that he sees it, acknowledges it, and then sends it their way. So a lot of stuff in Call of Duty, especially in this third one, has been attributed to him. He is the person who brought back Drop Zone after it was taken off the list and replaced with Infected. People were like, "Oh, where's Drop Zone? I want it back." He's like, "Okay, boom, got it back for you." A lot of the stuff that was done with patches was because people are like, these weapons are unbalanced. This map, there's a glitch here, and they tell him. He tells the developers, and they're like, "Okay, let's get ready. We'll fix it up and make it right." And but the thing is, and I'm not innocent of this. As soon as there's a problem with Call of Duty, he is the first one to take it, and he takes it on the chin every day. So I get the feeling that really just wore thin with him. And earlier, believe it was Tuesday, no, was it Tuesday? Yes, it was yesterday. He was like, "I've had enough. I can't deal with this anymore." He didn't say that was the reason specifically, but he said that, I am officially done. So pretty big news. No one has been elected yet to fill his position, but I doubt there are many people stepping up to the plate on that one. And I'm excited to see who's next, because the news or the rumors now is that because he's still very good friends with Sampella and West, he has now gone to their new company, Respawn Entertainment, and they're now working on the COD killer, essentially, the game that's going to topple Call of Duty. So I guess we'll see what happens there, but I'm very excited to see how this turns out. I think he's a really smart guy, and it's just it's a crappy job.
Right. Yeah. No. sitting there and having to take crap from every
Kids like me.
like preteen kid on Xbox.
Yeah.
All the high pitched F-bomb droppers when you play Xbox. That's not a job that I would want at all. I would rather gouge out my own eyeballs, I think, than have that as a job. So
Oh, it's awful.
props to him for doing what he did for as long as he did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I wish the guy the best because he really had a really tough job. So we'll see what happens in the future for him. But it was still very shocking, regardless of how awful his job is on paper. It was still very shocking that he left because he's a guy that just kept pushing away at it. But I guess maybe it just took too long, and he's like, no, got to get out.
Yeah. Speaking of getting out, Dennis Dyack offers a way out for the industry. Actually, he even more crazy. He said something that's a little bit controversial at the least, crazy at the other end of the chart. And he's basically saying that used games are the downfall and will be the downfall of the industry.
Yeah.
Dennis Dyack, if you don't know, he's the head developer, head owner of Silicon Knights. He's the guy that came out with a great game that a lot of people didn't like. that was in development for 10 years.
Yes.
And Silicon Knights basically took a huge tumble after that. They're also the development house that has had like a 5-year legal battle with Epic over the Unreal Engine. So
that has taken a lot of their money away too. The fees on that one alone have been a huge amount of money lost.
Yeah, it's crazy, all the stuff that's happening. But Dennis Dyack is he's a very polarizing individual. I can remember back when I used to listen to One Up Yours, the podcast way back in the day when it was good and had all these awesome people on it. And he came on to do a show, and he was basically saying how crazy everybody is, that they support multiple consoles. There should be one console. It's a one console future. And I'm just listening to this guy, and I'm like, he's obviously worked a little bit too hard. He's sounding a little bit off. Anyway, he went into hiding after what was the name of the game? I'm blanking on his game right now.
And I can't remember it either,
really
but that's how forgettable it was.
I'm gonna Google search this because I'm really upset that I can't think of this.
The guy though, he has one of the biggest mouths in the gaming industry. He doesn't know when to shut up, and I don't feel like it's like he ever regrets what he says, which is fine. I mean, you say what's on your mind, and that is your right, and that's totally, I get that.
Yep.
But he has some very radical ideas. The one console future is one that, while has some very interesting points to it, it's like, I can't get on board with this. I mean, I don't see there being a big competition for my business. I don't see there being, innovation in any way, because if everybody's all put together, there's really no reason to push that far forward. And I just don't see everybody working together properly. I mean, if you get Microsoft and Sony in the same room and they're like, hey, let's make an Xbox PS4 hybrid, first of all, it'll never happen. It just won't. It's impossible to kind of even get those guys talking together, because while they respect each other as businesses, they hate each other. I mean, that's my direct competition. They are effectively taking money right out of my hands. Exactly. So I have to do everything I can to destroy them. And that's the great thing about capitalism. This guy he's so off base here. And then, I don't get this at all. Like, I understand where he's coming from with used games, but used cars don't break the auto industry,
Used anything.
Yeah, used clothing doesn't break the clothing industry. There are people who want the same kind of level of entertainment, but they don't have the money to pay $60, $70 for it. Totally. When it comes down in price and it's $30, then they can get it and they can have the same amount of enjoyment that anybody else has. And I'm a huge proponent of used games. I mean, I think they are the lifeblood of the industry. And I think if there wasn't used games, I think that would destroy the gaming industry, because they're just too friggin' expensive most of the time.
Exactly. So the game's called Too Human, and I feel like really bad that I I forgot that because it's on the shelf right behind me. Like I have all my 360 games and it's like right there, and it's just like I want to go grab it and find it. But anyway, Two Human came out. Two Human was originally developed for the PlayStation, the original PlayStation, and it wasn't developed as a Norse mythology crazy game that it actually shipped in. So it's been in development forever, and it finally hit and came out, and it didn't do so well.
It sucked.
The game itself was okay, but it didn't live up to the hype. Like I could see myself playing it, but I can't see myself loving it or falling in love with it. So anyway, Two Human came out. He had a meltdown on a couple media stops, and then he basically disappeared from the realm. Like we didn't hear anything about him at all. Over the last little while, things have bubbled up about him working on some Wii U titles and bringing back Silicon Knights, so bringing back like Eternal Darkness and stuff like that. That would be really cool if Eternal Darkness came back. But he had a really big interview. I'll link to it in the show notes with the GamePolitics.biz. And basically, or gamepolitics.com rather, and basically he said that game budgets are skyrocketing. They're going to be $300 million in the future. And the reason about that, or the reason behind that, is that more people are buying used games, forcing developers to spend more money in development of their titles so that they can get more people to buy their games. So they have to spend more money to attract more business from people because they're spending less money to buy used games.
Wow. The logic makes no sense. As a developer, I'm going to spend 20% more money to make the same amount of money. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It doesn't make sense. So he's basically saying that since this year, game sales are way down. They're actually down around 8%. But that's 8% of console game sales. They're not tracking game downloads. So the full games you buy on your Xbox 360, the full games you buy on your PS3, stuff you're buying on Steam. They're not talking about all the downloadable content. They're not talking about any iOS downloads. Yeah. So discs are down 8%, which makes sense because I'm buying games on my iPad now. I'm not going to buy a new $60 game every week. I'm buying a $60 game every 2-3 weeks, and I'm buying the other $60 I'd be spending there, I'm spending somewhere else on Xbox Live Arcade, on my PlayStation Network, on my my PS3, sorry, my 3DS. Like all these other consoles are taking that money. The money is still being spent. It's just not. I'm not buying a physical piece of plastic anymore at GameStop. So right from the get-go, his argument is a little bit flawed. But then to come out and say that we have to spend more money to make games, so used game sales are causing us to do that, just it doesn't have any basis in reality that I can see. To me, what would make more sense? Spending $300 million on a game and selling it for $60 and getting X number of people buying it, or spending $300 million on a game and charging $40 for it and getting that many people times 0.5 buying it. So half as many people again buying the game because it's cheaper. Like to me, the more expensive the game is, the less games I'm going to buy. If I have to pony up $60 for every AAA title that comes out, I just can't afford it. There's just not enough money to go around.
It's a very, very expensive business model. But the thing is, I mean, they keep putting games up at that price because they know people are going to pay it. And yes, the physical game sales are down 8%. That's a fact. It's been written in and everything. But the gaming industry as a whole has grown exponentially. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars here a year. And it is effectively the biggest entertainment industry in the world. And that keeps growing. So the fact that he's saying that it's destroying the industry, it's destroying physical game sales, sure. But if I buy a game for $60, I buy Mass Effect 3, and then I beat the game, and then they keep putting out new content, and I pay $15 here, $15 here. That game is not going to leave my console very often, and I'll just keep it on my shelf more, and really not need to go and buy a new game because, there's a new DLC for Mass Effect 3. I'll just buy that instead.
Yeah, look at Fallout New Vegas. The game itself was $60. I bought $60 worth of DLC for the game. So I pretty much bought 2 copies of Fallout New Vegas, but to NPD, I bought one $60 game. I didn't buy that downloadable content. So
Absolutely. But you also ended up getting about 18 months of play out of it, right?
I mean, yeah, and I love that, and that's why I do it. But that games aren't like, this isn't like N64 era where you go to the store, you buy your cartridge, and you slap it in the thing, and it's not updated, it's not connected to the internet, and they track that we moved like a metric ton of those cartridges, so we know that we're doing well. Next month we moved that much more plus a little bit more. So yeah, we're growing. This is great. The game industry has basically separated into a whole bunch of different layers now. There's the casual gamers on Facebook buying Facebook credits. There's people that are buying like portable games, like iOS games. I don't even want to know how much I spend a month on iOS games. It's stupid. And if I ever took time to figure that out, I'd hate myself. So I don't do it because I buy everything. There's people that are just buying portable games like DS, the kids that play Pokemon and battle in the schoolyard. Then there's people that are buying PC games. There's people that are buying console games. Like, there isn't just one way to get games anymore. Like, there isn't an arcade that you go play games for a quarter. PC games, which are limited, and PCs were very expensive, so not as many people had them. And then consoles, which was the cheap way to get games. Now the playing field is leveled. So personally, I think he should maybe look at directing the industry to lower the price in games, because if anything, iOS has proven that if you put out a game for a cheap enough amount, people are going to buy it in droves. Like, Angry Birds sold 10 million copies in 3 days.
Yeah, insane.
And sure, people are saying, well, it's only $1. It's like, yeah, it's only $1. So if they would have sold it for $10, they wouldn't have sold 1 million copies, I'm sure. There would have been a lot less people that were willing to pony up the dollar, but they still made the $10 million that they wanted to make. Or they probably made more because it's only the iPhone version that's 99 cents. Other ones are $3. So
yeah, and I think that, if the Apple Store ever went in the way that, the developers could set their own prices regardless, if you could charge a game at 69 cents instead of 99, I think you would see at least 10% more people buying that game, which would cover the difference and then add on to your total.
Yeah.
The thing about gaming now is that it's very difficult to have a quantifiable number of here's exactly how many digital downloads we have, but then to like have that forecasted, right? Because there could be this big swell at the beginning and then it just die off. It's something that we're still kind of in the infancy of trying to figure out how to track it, how to make sure that, these are numbers that are legitimate, I guess, without, completely overselling them. Like you said earlier, it's not like we have a stack of games. We know we shipped out 10,000 this week and then 8,000 next week, but then the week after we shipped out 12,000. So it covered the difference. It's tough to kind of figure out. But the fact that, I also don't have to wait for the working hours of a retail store to open up at any time. As long as my internet's hooked up, I can go and buy new content. It's tough to kind of track. And this guy, I mean, we're now dancing around it, but this guy is just way off base. He's just so off base here.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have extreme views because that's what causes discussion and that's what gets people interested in talking about these things. My personal view is that if games didn't cost $60, you'd have a lot more people buying them. A lot more people buying them leads to a lot more people playing them, leads to a lot more people seeing them play them, which leads to more sales. Like, I download a game on my iPhone and someone walks by and sees me play it. They ask what it is. I tell them, they watch for a few minutes, they go home and they buy it. Like, having more people playing games leads to more game sales. The money isn't disappearing. It's still being spent in the world. There's probably more money being spent now because there's casual players that are buying games that would never have bought games before. I just wish the game industry would try some things. Have the publishers price games at $20, $30. See what happens. Don't just release every single game at $60 on a console and complain that you're only selling 100,000 copies. Like,
yeah, it's the go-to price. It's really tough to convince a publisher that, hey, maybe we should come in here competitively and price it at 49 or 55. It's a tough call for them because they're like, well, no, because we're pretty much guaranteed that we're going to sell 100,000 copies in the first week at $60. So we're going to keep it like that. And then maybe in a few weeks, if sales drop off a lot, we'll push it down to 49 or whatever. And And I'm not quite sure if I would make that aggressive of a decision if I was in that position either.
Hmm.
I think I'd probably still ride the wave at $60. I mean, even back when I was a kid and my dad was buying me games, they were still 45, $50, and the money's different now. So they've always been essentially the same price.
Exactly. It's just that now the market has changed.
Absolutely.
You have systems where people are buying $2 games, 99-cent games, $5 games. Like you look at the eShop on the 3DS. I can download a game like Mutant Mudds, which is an amazing game for $6. And like a year or two ago, that would have been a cartridge that I would have bought for $29. Like but I'm still spending the same amount of money. I'm just getting more enjoyment for that money and spreading it around to a lot of different developers. So,
Yep.
I think places like Kickstarter, Steam, they're changing the industry. I mean, you're going to have the Activisions of the world that are going to want $60, and they're going to want to sell you in-game currency, and they're going to want to sell you DLC, and they're going to want to sell you a subscription, and that's going to work well for them for the next few years. But the writing's on the wall, and things are changing. So I hope a lot of really smart developers take the Kickstarter route and self-fund their games and release them at an affordable price and sell 10 times as many games as they normally would, so everybody and their dog is playing their game, and then they have that many more people that are going to buy sequels and other products from that developer. And it's just gonna the industry is just gonna fuel itself by selling more copies of whatever game you're talking about.
Yeah, I totally agree.
All right, moving on.
Yeah, so I read the story earlier this week, and then I decided, like, yeah, this is something that we need to talk about here. I was reading on Kotaku that apparently the U.S. military is wanting to hack foreign game consoles to steal user information, which is crazy. I mean, just on paper, I'm like, what? But yes, apparently the Department of the Navy is looking very closely at used video game consoles. They want to crack them open and steal all the information on overseas users they can get their hands on. Essentially, why they want to do it is because they're not allowed to target any U.S. persons. What they're trying to do is get this company called Obscure Technologies, which is the same company. Their lead scientist apparently reverse engineered the Microsoft Xbox a few years back. But what they want to do is buy a mountain of pre-owned video game consoles and obtain as much significant and sensitive information from previous users as it's possible to get. It's kind of scary because essentially if you live overseas and you've ever sold your console back to a store or to anyone, you're now at risk. That's crazy to think about.
Are you sure this isn't like the plot of the next Michael Bay movie or something? Like
it sounds like totally like some crazy guy just wrote this up, but this is a real story, and there's a full outline of the contract from the Department of the Navy to the contracting company, and it's like details the whole thing to Obscure Technologies.
Wow, craziness. I don't know what to say about it. I mean, there's always going to be governments that are trying to steal things from other people and other governments. So it doesn't surprise me. It's just weird to actually hear that it's actually happening, and
Yeah.
you know it's happening, but when you hear it's actually happening, it basically kind of weirds you out a little bit.
The scariest thing about it is that because they're going overseas and effectively buying these consoles, they're not actually stealing the consoles. They're just taking the information that's on them. They're not breaking any laws, which is that's nerve wracking. I mean, like we live in Canada, right? And like, there's no real risk for that happening to us, but it's like, holy crap, like, where does it stop? So I'm always hesitant to kind of put these, whistleblower type of like conspiratorial stories on the show, but I feel like this is just something that people need to know about. And if there are any UK listeners over there, you should be very careful to try as hard as you can to eliminate every single piece of information that you have on your console before you turn that thing in.
Or someone will steal it.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, moving on. Next story is a little bit less conspiracy theory like.
I would say significantly less.
A little bit. But yeah, okay, significantly. We'll go that way. if you like MMO games, but you don't want to pay a yearly fee to play or monthly fee to play the next one, there is now an MMO that you can play for free on every single browser that you own. It's called Browser Quest, and it is a free open source MMO that looks kind of like a top-down Zelda. The best part is it's written entirely in HTML5 and JavaScript, so it can play on anything. It can play on your iPad. It can play on anything pretty much that,
awesome.
that can display HTML5. The game itself is pretty I don't know, it's pretty light, but basically it uses WebSockets, so there's a central server. All the players are basically being controlled and tracked by the central server, so everybody's client is updating in real time. And essentially, this is just a proof of concept. It's not a game that they're working on, but it's basically showing me, more than anything, it's showing me how exciting it's going to be in the future, where you're going to fire up a web browser and you're going to be playing World of Warcraft. And it's going to be running entirely in browser, so you can load it up on your iPad, you can load it up on your PlayStation 3 browser, you can do whatever you want. And
would it play on the PlayStation 3 browser, or even like Opera on the DS?
I don't know. I don't think so. Opera definitely not, because of the way that it renders pages on a central server and then sends down the rendered page to you. But I should try it on the PlayStation 3. That would be a cool test to see what would happen.
This game looks awesome, by the way. Like, I watched the little video on the page that you hyperlinked in the show notes here, and like, this is just, and for free, like,
it's multiplayer Zelda. Essentially,
I'm definitely this is a game that I will talk about next week on the show and what I've been playing, because I'm gonna play this. There's just no question about it.
It reminds me a little bit of early on with Minecraft, where there was this weird thing called Minecraft, and people are playing it, and you get into it, and it's just like, I don't get this. This it really excites me because it's open source, so that means that anybody can basically copy it and change it and make their own thing. So I can just imagine a future where there's like different forks of Browser Quest, and they're basically being worked on just like people are working on Minecraft levels. So this is really exciting me. I love Zelda-esque games, and this one is very Zelda.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Moving on.
All right. So last piece of news here, big news anyway, on the show tonight is that BioWare fans in the backlash of people mad about the Mass Effect 3 ending, these fans are going a different route to kind of bring awareness to the game's controversial ending to BioWare. So what they're doing is they've raised $1,000 to send 400 cupcakes with a message asking the developer to add more sweetness, as they put it, to the game's ending. And I'll read a little bit of what they said here in their message. As fans, we want BioWare to do right by us and fix the endings for Mass Effect 3. Already out of the gate with this sentence, I'm just so pissed off. But I'll continue. But we also want to let BioWare know that we trust them and have faith in them. BioWare has been slammed by negativity from all sides in the last few weeks. This is our way, as fans, to drive our message home, but in a literally sweet way. We want BioWare to add more sweet to their bittersweet ending. What better way to do this with cupcakes? And essentially what they're doing is all 400 cupcakes will have a couple of different colors on them, but each cupcake and icing is going to be vanilla. So no matter which cupcake you choose as an allegory for the ending, you always kind of get the same taste, which is actually a pretty interesting and creative way to say this, but it's still like, oh my God, it's a game. I love Mass Effect as much as the next guy, and I love Mass Effect as much as these people, but grow up, man. I mean, it's a game. They made it. It's their piece of art. Let it go.
Yeah,
please.
It would be like people picketing J.K. Rowling because they didn't like the ending of whatever Harry Potter book they were pissed off at. I mean, I've never seen people rally like the entitlements of these people that are bitching about this. It just blows me away. But I mean, that's
so maddening.
The kids growing up nowadays. People are calling it the entitlement generation for a reason, I guess. And I think this is just the start. This is the start of stuff that's going to happen more frequently, I guess. But
yeah, it's unfortunate. I don't like to see this happen, and it frustrates me, and I'm not 100% committed to the ending of Mass Effect 3. No spoilers here, but it's not something that I was like completely riveted by. However, the amount of work that these people have done on this game and the ending that they've come up with is incredibly satisfying. It leaves a lot to be desired and a lot of questions, but I think a good game shouldn't, or a good piece of any kind of fiction shouldn't just wrap up everything neatly and say, once you put it down, you're like, I have nothing to ask more, and that I think that's actually doing the story more harm than good.
Right.
Having all these little questions, you can go and I can talk about it with my friends and we'll have debates and discussions. If they just wrapped up everything and answered every single question you had, it'd be like, all right,
Yeah.
that's fine.
It's like I've seen a lot of people compare. I haven't played Mass Effect 3 yet, and I gotta finish Mass Effect 2 so I can pick up Mass Effect 3. So I'm still like, anytime that I hear something about like Shepard in like a sentence, I like stop reading it right away because I don't want any spoilers happening.
Yeah.
But it's like the ending to Sopranos, where Sopranos ended a while ago, so I don't think this is spoiler territory. But basically, the ending in the last episode, it just ends black screen.
Yeah.
So nothing is wrapped up. You don't know what Tony's doing. You don't know what's happening in the world. You don't know if he's still going to be the mob boss, if someone's going to kill him. Like, you don't know anything, and it just ends. And I was so angry when that happened. I'm like, but they didn't tell me what happened. And then I cooled down and I'm like, all right, well, anything could have happened. Maybe he died. Maybe that was a heart attack. Maybe that was his brain blowing up. Maybe
Yeah.
things just continue the way they are, and that's just the way of saying it. I would never have thought of petitioning the writers of Sopranos to tell them, order them to come up with
Yes,
a better
order.
ending, because, well, they're mafia tied, so I'm gonna get my knees broken if I
Yeah,
do that.
absolutely.
But it wouldn't ever dawn on me that I'm gonna be bitching at someone to change an ending because I didn't like it. Well, if you don't like it, well, don't buy whatever the next thing they work on is. Like,
Yeah, I think you
you
got to have some balls to step up to someone who's been giving you what is, in my opinion, the best video game story over the last 7 years and say, you screwed this up. Give me what I deserve.
yeah.
That is just so, I can't even, you might as well go up and spit in their face if you say that, because that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, that'll be their next campaign, I'm sure.
And I'm sitting here repping an N7 sweater here that I just got in the mail
Nice.
yesterday.
That's what
So
that is.
yeah, I'm rocking the Mass Effect Shepard sweater right now. So
Jealous.
I am a big fan of this franchise, but I'm not angry about the ending. I can't believe that people are this, mad. And granted, this last story here, they're not knocking on their door and just, throwing eggs at the windows or anything. They're giving them cupcakes. That's fine. And I understand that. It's a nice cutesy way to do it without being so aggressive.
They're
I
being very
still,
Canadian, which is fitting since BioWare offices are in Canada. So I guess it's the Canadian way of protesting, sending cupcakes and
Yeah.
treating them well and saying, yeah, if you would please think about doing this, that would be really nice.
I
If
just
not, that's okay. I understand.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that in a lot of communications that have been done through any kind of group who wants to petition to get the ending changed, what they always say is, give us what we deserve. And that is just, in my brain, I'm like, you don't deserve anything. You bought the game.
You deserve
There's-
what you experienced on that $60 piece of plastic you put
Yeah.
and spun around at high velocity in your game system. That's what you deserve.
And that game, like, I mean, they could have put that thing at $120 for the regular edition, and I would have played it and gone, damn right, I would have paid $120 for that, and I would have still thought the game was perfect. I mean, it was almost like I was getting more game than it was worth. It was like, they were treating me in a
You
sense.
gave me too much.
Exactly,
Give me
they
less
did.
next time.
It's kind of like Skyrim. Skyrim is, the fact that those things sold at $60 was like, I feel like I'm stealing from you the amount of work that went into this.
Yeah, totally.
Deserve. Ugh. People.
But hopefully this is the end of this BioWare ending fiasco with the DLC stuff that we talked about last week. I just hope this goes away because it just leaves a sour taste in my mouth every time.
Yeah. It won't, but I don't think that unless something really big happens, I don't think I'll bring it up on the show again. Just because it just makes me so mad.
I'd rather have a nice vanilla flavor in my mouth instead of something sour. So
Absolutely.
maybe I'm going to go get a cupcake after this. Okay.
I know where they're delivering 400.
Time to book my flight. All right, moving on. Let's get into the quick hit section. Why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, absolutely. So PS Vita, jeez, all right, that's a good way to kick it off, Jeff. PS Vita titles Everybody's Tennis and MotorStorm Arctic Edge are being pulled from store shelves and have been removed as downloadable games from the PSN. This is due to some hackers finding coding exploits that allows them to play homebrew games on the device. Sony apparently does not appreciate this. There's a video on the internet, if you go and check it out, of a guy loading up Everybody's Tennis, doing a couple little button presses, and then boom, he's right into Doom, which is actually kind of cool.
I dig that.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. In a Duke Nukem Forever caliber, I'll believe it when I see it moment. Today, Polytron Software announced that the cubic platformer Fez now has a release date. I didn't believe it when they said it went gold and went into certification, but it did. It now has a release date. It'll be releasing on Friday, April 13th. Fez will
Red flag.
Fez will set you back 800 points. Ironic release date and all.
Yeah, and that guy has been in the news a lot for some controversial things he said.
Phil Fish is an interesting individual. Indie Game the movie had a really good view of his breakdown and resurgence. So if you haven't seen that movie yet, you have to go see it.
I gotta check that one out. And lastly, in what I consider to be the coolest story this week, consumer affairs blog The Consumerist is running a March Madness style bracket trying to find out what the worst company in America is, and EA has now moved into the top 8. If you think that EA is the worst company, you can head over to theconsumerist.com and cast your vote. I think that they're a pretty rough shot kind of company. One of the worst. I don't know. I think that there's considerably more worse out there, but it's just funny that EA has essentially destroyed everyone they've been up against so far. I think it'd be really cool if they were in the Final Four or something.
Yeah, the whole EA spouse will finally feel vindicated if this actually happens. All right, moving on. One more. It's not actually in the notes, but I just want to make mention. Today, Sony let us know if you are a PlayStation Plus member and you have an actual PlayStation Plus account. They let us know what free stuff will be coming in April. Every week there's free stuff given to us if you own an account, which is pretty cool. In April, you're going to get a free beta or a free entrance into the beta for Ghost Recon Future Soldier, which a lot of people are looking forward to. It looks really awesome.
Got it on pre-order.
But even better, you're going to get a free copy of Shank 2, which is a really awesome hand-drawn beat 'em up with like stupid amounts of blood, which is really cool. And also Shift 2 Unleashed. So Need for Speed Shift 2, the full game, you're going to get a copy of that if you have an active PlayStation Plus account. On top of everything else cool, there's free movies. There's a bunch of PS1 classics coming. The original Silent Hill, Cannabolt, you'll get for free. Farm Frenzy 2, Mystic Garden, and Frogger Returns will all be coming for free in the month of April. So I'm going to kind of do this every month when they make announcements, because I'm a PlayStation Plus member just because I had to back up my save games once when I swapped out my hard drive because my hard drive was dying. And I basically stayed a member since, because I'm getting so many free games that I can play and then not feel bad that if I don't beat them or if I don't complete them for whatever reason, they're free and I can check them out and do all that stuff. It's actually a really cool service. My buddy bugs me all the time, and then I remind him that he has an Xbox Live Gold account, right? And he says yes. And I say, you are spending $60 a year to play multiplayer, and he's like, shut up. So it's like, at least
that's a good counterpoint.
At least I'm getting free games for spending the same kind of money.
Yeah,
so
I would have to just put, and I think that for me, PlayStation Plus it sits on the rails of being a good value, and then it's like, oh, this is kind of, I'm being screwed. But my only disclaimer is that you do get free games. But as soon as you deactivate your Plus account, you no longer get access to those games.
Exactly. So it's a bonus while you are a subscriber. So stay a subscriber forever. It's the same thing with Xbox. If your subscription lapsed, you can't play games anymore. So I can see that. I'm probably going to be a subscriber forever. And the good thing is, if you don't try to play the games when your subscription lapsed, they'll just stay on your hard drive forever. Then you can re-up and you'll be golden, good to go.
Yeah, you won't have to re-download them or anything, which is really good.
Cool. Well, it looks like your video is frozen, so I'm going to switch off.
I'm trying to figure this out, but it looks like I'm locked up here.
Cool. Well, that's perfect timing, because we're at the end of this episode. So thanks everybody for coming out and listening, downloading, staying subscribed, and all that fun stuff. Head on over to vgpodcast.com and let us know how we're doing. There's a contact us button at the top of the page. You can send us an email that way. Email us directly at vgpodcast@gmail.com. Or you call our voicemail line, which is area code 505 VG Podcasts. That's 505-847-6322. Leave all your questions, comments, love, praise, hate, whatever, and we'll play it in future episodes of These Dudes on Games.
Absolutely.
All right, man. I think that's about do it. Thanks for another show.
Thank you. I always have fun doing these.
I think it went pretty good. We're at an hour and 20 minutes, so I think it went really good. You guys enjoy your week, play all those awesome games, and we'll talk to you next week.
See you later.
Later.